Training camp hasn't even started yet, and Denver is already staring down one of the most dramatic roster shakeups in recent memory. We're talking about a beloved veteran on the chopping block, a mystery seventh-round sleeper who might just steal a spot away from a fan favorite, and a looming court date that could send shockwaves through the entire defensive line. Buckle up, Broncos country, because this early roster prediction is absolutely loaded with drama. Let's start at the very top with the quarterback room, because even here there's a twist. Most people assume this team simply keeps its franchise starter and a trusted backup and calls it a day. That part's not surprising. What is surprising is what happens to the third quarterback on the depth chart, a guy who's been around the building for a while now. The buzz is that he doesn't even make it to the season opener. Insiders believe he gets traded away before Week 1. To who? Nobody knows yet. But keep an eye on that one, because a veteran arm getting shipped out right before the season starts would send an instant jolt through the fan base. Now to the running back room, where the drama is less about who's out and more about who's fighting for scraps. The expectation is that the team carries 4 backs into the season, headlined by a veteran who's dealing with a concerning injury history. Because of that uncertainty, a depth piece who might otherwise be a long shot suddenly looks like he's got real value as an insurance policy, even if he doesn't see much action on game day. That means at least one former contributor a guy fans have grown attached to likely gets squeezed out entirely and lands on the practice squad instead. Tough business, this league. The wide receiver room is shaping up to be one of the more fascinating position battles on the entire roster. 6 spots with the top names essentially locked in. But the real intrigue is at the bottom of the depth chart, where a newly signed veteran receiver is reportedly beating out a younger, more NFL-tested player for the final roster spot. The logic here is simple. The front office wouldn't have brought this guy in unless they had big plans for him, and that alone might be enough to nudge him ahead of a player who arguably has a slight athletic edge in terms of adjusting to the pro game. It's a coin flip, but right now, the veteran newcomer has the edge. Then there's the tight end room, and oh boy, this is where things get spicy. The presumed top 3 are more or less safe, but the 4th and final spot? That's a legitimate toss-up between a returning veteran tight end that fans have wanted to see more of and a raw, athletic 7th-round developmental prospect who stands nearly 6'7" and profiles as an absolute red zone nightmare for opposing defenses. And right now, in an admittedly early gut call, the flashy young developmental prospect is winning that battle. If that holds, it means a beloved fan favorite tight end, along with a couple of other depth pieces at the position, get bumped down to the practice squad. It's a genuinely tough call, and one that could swing either direction the moment training camp reps start piling up. Add all that together on offense, and including a fairly unchanged offensive line group that returns essentially every starter from a year ago, you're looking at roughly 26 total offensive roster spots. Which brings us to the defense, and this is where the real fireworks are waiting. Up front on the defensive line, the expectation is that the team actually keeps one extra body compared to last season. Why? Because a rotational piece who played a key role last year is expected to be gone this offseason, and the front office wants to make sure they've got enough bodies to fill that void. That depth adjustment means a returning depth lineman with modest tackle numbers from a season ago is on the outside looking in, edged out by a player who is working his way back from what was reportedly a serious lower body injury believed to be either a torn ankle or Achilles. If that player is truly back to full health, as recent buzz suggests, he could leapfrog a familiar name entirely. At inside linebacker, the top 2 spots are rock solid. No surprises there. But the battle for the final 2 roster spots is heating up, with 2 younger, hungrier prospects reportedly beating out a couple of other fan-favorite depth linebackers for those final slots. It's a changing of the guard at the bottom of that depth chart, and it might not sit well with everyone watching from home. Now here's the story that could blow the entire defensive line prediction wide open. One projected edge rusher on this roster is currently facing serious legal trouble, with a court date reportedly just days away at the time of this projection. And the expectation from people closely tracking the situation is blunt. If the allegations against him are confirmed, this franchise is not expected to retain him on the roster. Full stop. Innocent until proven otherwise, of course, but the sentiment around the building is that if the worst is confirmed, this is a player this organization simply won't want associated with the team. That's a legitimate storyline capable of reshaping the entire defensive front in an instant, and it's one that fans absolutely need to keep their eyes on in the coming days. Moving to the defensive backfield, the cornerback room might be the single most stacked, least dramatic position group on the entire roster. 5 spots, filled by what many consider some of the very best defensive backs in the entire NFL at their respective roles. There's genuinely no drama here. This group is loaded, it's talented, and there isn't a realistic path for anyone else to crack that top 5. Sometimes the story really is just, these guys are all really, really good, and that's exactly the case here. At safety, though, there's a wrinkle worth talking about. A recently signed veteran safety, someone fans were genuinely excited about when he joined the team, is projected to miss the roster entirely. The reasoning? The 2 younger safeties currently penciled in ahead of him proved to be the 2 best special teams contributors on the entire roster last season. And that special teams value is exactly the kind of thing that can make or break a depth roster battle. So instead, the newly signed veteran becomes a break glass in case of emergency type of depth piece, ready to be called up if needed, but not guaranteed a spot to start the year. It's a stunning wrinkle for a signing that generated real buzz just months ago. Round it all out with your standard specialists, kicker, punter, and long snapper, and you've got your full 53-man projection months before a single preseason snap has even been played. So let's recap the biggest storylines shaking out of this very early roster projection. A veteran quarterback getting shipped out of town before the season even begins. A tight end battle that could send a fan favorite to the practice squad in favor of a towering rookie sleeper nobody was talking about a year ago. A recently signed safety who might not even make the cut despite generating real excitement when he arrived. And, most dramatically of all, a looming legal situation involving a defensive lineman that could completely reshape this roster depending on how the next few days unfold. Obviously, take all of this with a grain of salt. Nobody has taken the field in pads yet, and roster predictions this early are as much guesswork as they are analysis. But that's exactly what makes this time of year so much fun. Every single one of these battles could look completely different by the time final cuts roll around, and that unpredictability is half the excitement of the build-up to a new season. So here's what we want to know from you. Do you agree with this roster projection, or is there a name here you think we've got dead wrong? Are you team fan favorite tight end, or are you buying into the rookie sleeper hype? And what do you think happens with that looming legal situation on the defensive line? Sound off in the comments below because we want to hear every single one of your predictions. If you enjoyed breaking down this roster projection with us, make sure you smash that like button. Drop a comment with your own predictions and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single update as training camp battles start heating up in real time. We'll be right back here with the next roster update as soon as pads come on and the real competition begins. See you in the next one.